You are listening to a Fonz Media Network production.
Take my eyes open to force reality. Why can't you just let me eat my weight in glee? Hush.
Well, hello, World of Blaze listeners, and welcome to episode 45. I have a lot to go over in this episode. It's going to be jam-packed with video clips and basically some rebuttals to the accusations on the side of the leftist media and, of course, the Democrat Party pundits, who are the forever blue people, regardless of wrong or right. The thing is, I actually had a little time to go over what's happening. And I had a fine cigar, finally. My wife bought me a fine bottle of scotch for my birthday, even got me one of my favorite bottles of champagne. And I'm outside, lighting up my cigar. Fine cigar, by the way. And I'm going over my clips, my bookmarks. I'm about to address a few different issues here. To be quite honest, unrelated to the election, because by now I'm kind of over talking about it. I'm very sure that most people know where they're at. But here I am again addressing more and more of the hypocritical bullshit. Because right when I was about to put my show together, I see nothing but news reports and news clips that are comparing Trump's New York rally at Madison Square Garden to the 1939 Nazi Party rally, claiming that the entire rally was nothing but racist hate and division, and mostly due to comedian Tony Hinchcliffe's set. He warmed up the crowd ahead of time. And of course, pretty much everything that Tony did, all the jokes that he told were absolutely isolated and taken out of context. It's one of those things where you have to see the entire set to get it, because Tony was literally making fun of many things, everybody, and mostly poking fun at real world situations. But regardless, I'm going to go ahead and play the parts that everybody was so upset about.
These Latinos, they love making babies too. Just know that. They do. They do. There's no pulling out. They don't do that. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Okay. So that right there is what everybody's really upset about. They are alleging that the entire Trump rally, that Trump himself and everybody who supports Trump are racist. They're calling Puerto Ricans nothing but garbage and denying that they're even Americans. But this was all taken out of context for sure, because I actually watched the full set. And listen, you need to take a joke. This is comedy. Now, the one thing that I will admit, though, and I'm not afraid to do so, just as many others are, having a comedian like Tony, to be quite honest, at a presidential rally may have not been the right choice, in my opinion. Was the joke, what was it appropriate for the situation, for where he was at, given the context of what the rally was about and, basically gaining votes for a president? Sure, I personally think it was out of context. I don't think that joke in and of itself should have been told, but you got to understand the joke. The joke wasn't calling Puerto Ricans garbage. He was referring to the situation in Puerto Rico where they actually do have a garbage problem. They don't recycle. They have a pile of garbage that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger because they don't recycle their trash and they don't manage the trash properly. So yes, they have a waste management issue, and that is what Tony was referring to. But again, sure, I believe this was an out-of-place joke. Probably shouldn't have been told. But throughout his entire set, he made fun of everybody and every situation that's been going on in this election. So you got to have a little bit of a sense of humor, but sure, I'll say, yeah, maybe you shouldn't have said that given the circumstances. But let's move on, because while the left is screaming about how the entire Republican Party, how the Trump supporters are all now extremely racist and divisive, even though, there's people from all sides that support Trump from all races. Here's a clip of somebody who is actually Puerto Rican, who can take a joke and explains exactly why she thought it was funny and why it landed.
Here's why smart Puerto Ricans, like me, were not offended about the joke that was made about Puerto Rico being a garbage heap floating in the Atlantic at the Trump rally in New York, Madison Square Garden. Okay, let's explain it. Truthfully, there is a landfill problem in Puerto Rico. They don't recycle in Puerto Rico. They have a massive waste management problem in Puerto Rico. And because I knew of this, and I have family in Puerto Rico, and they would complain about this all the time, this joke landed for me. I was like, yeah, okay, he's not lying. And, now, the problem is right away the Democrats want to be all about race, and they want to make this a racist thing, and they want to put Trump in the bucket of this guy that made this joke and racist. How about if you care so much about the environment, darling Democrat friends, that you would look into Puerto Rico and you'd see the problem that's happening there with the trash?
And so there you have it. There you have it. Exactly as I said. They have a waste management issue. So you got to understand one thing about comedians. Most everything they do, it's funny because it's based on a level of truth that's an uncomfortable truth that makes you laugh because it is an uncomfortable truth. And your only reaction is to laugh because you have to admit, yeah, it's kind of fucked up. Yeah, there is an issue going on that we need to address. But this was no way a direct statement towards Puerto Ricans. It's ridiculous for anyone to think that. And if all Puerto Ricans were just so offended, then what do you say about Puerto Rico's shadow senator? I can't even pronounce her name. I'm not going to lie. I'm not even going to try. But she makes a statement here in which she goes ahead and she basically endorses Trump. So I'm going to play this clip of her basically literally endorsing Donald Trump.
My name is Zoraida Buxo, and I am the Republican United States Shadow Senator from a beautiful island where I was born and raised. Indeed, a community very well anchored with steadfast conservative values of family, faith, economic freedom, and deep, deep love of country. Blessed by God, that is home. That is Puerto Rico. So we won't get rattled. We won't yield to ignorance, foolishness, or irrational thoughtlessness. We will remain focused on what is really important. We all share a desire for change for the good. The course that our nation has been wrongfully placed by the Biden-Harris administration must be reversed. Failed policies in the economy and energy production that have driven up your cost of living and that have you struggling every month to pay your bills. Failed policies in matters of border security, law enforcement, immigration that have caused a great deal of chaos, a surge in violent crime across the nation, drug smuggling, and that have you feeling unsafe and unprotected. That is the record of Kamala Harris as border czar and VP for the last almost 4 years in power. I feel your pain. I'm with you. The crisis that our nation is going through is not a result of a natural disaster. It's a direct consequence of the actions and omissions of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Okay, so there you have it. She's in full support of the Trump campaign, directly calls out Kamala Harris and her record and the fact that she's been in office for nearly 4 years as VP and has done nothing, and directly addresses Joe Biden himself, our sitting president, which many people forget we still have a president because he's non-existent and really just not doing anything. So here she is, Puerto Rico's shadow U.S. senator, who just basically said, hey, we're not going to stand for the bullshit. We're not going to sit here and be rattled by this crazy divisive rhetoric to make us run for the hills and support Kamala Harris over a joke. She's here saying, no. We're in the situations we're in because the previous administration put us here and we're ready for change. And it's because of the previous administration that we're in the situation we are in, period. We're ready to move forward. So with that out of the way, now that I'm done addressing the whole Puerto Rico Nazi rally statements, and believe me, I want to keep going because the ridiculousness of trying to accuse Trump and his supporters of being Nazis and racists is ridiculous. But if you want to talk about garbage, if you want to be offended at a garbage statement, here's our actual president, Joe Biden. Again, yes, he's still here. He still exists. In a speech addressing the Trump rally and addressing the statement made by Tony Hinchcliffe, where he made the joke about Puerto Rico. And in this statement by our president, Joe Biden, he addresses Trump supporters. And guess what he calls them? Garbage. Directly. A direct statement stating that all Trump supporters are garbage. I know you're not going to believe me. You don't want to believe me, but here's the clip for you to hear.
Or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization is seen as unconscionable, and it's un-American.
Well, there you have it, Joe Biden. The only garbage I see out there floating around are his supporters. What kind of a statement is that? You do realize how close the election is, right? I mean, do you? All the polls are saying that they're pretty much neck and neck, just about divided down the middle. So it's okay for the leftist media and the Democratic Party and our sitting president himself to refer to more than half the nation as garbage, as people lesser than, as not even human, because they support Donald Trump. Now ask yourself this. What drove people to get to the point where they're voting for Donald Trump? Listen, if you were doing such a good job, if the Democratic Party over the last 12 to 16 years was doing such a great job, I'm sure Donald Trump never would have been voted in 2016. Never would have happened. But people saw through the bullshit. People were tired of the divisiveness, the racial rhetoric that was entirely pushed by the Democratic Party and its leftist media that it controls. And that's how Trump got in. People were tired, they're done. But the left doesn't want to let go. And recently in this election, look, this is their last ditch effort. They know they're on the ropes. They know they're losing. And your answer is to call more than half of all America garbage. And this isn't the only thing that's been said, by the way. It has been addressed by celebrities and other personalities that anyone who supports Trump's a racist and a Nazi. Anybody. There are a ton of accounts on X, by the way. If you're on X, formerly Twitter, listen, it's really hard to decipher who's real and who isn't, but the constant theme on X right now is that Republicans or people who support Trump are nothing but racist Nazis, and that you are the problem if you're voting for Donald Trump. But again, they don't want to address how we got here as a nation. They don't want to address the fact that they supported hate and they supported racial rhetoric. I mean, did we all forget about the George Floyd and BLM riots? Remember when those were being publicly supported by the Democrat Party? On national TV, by the way, on every news network. They were fully supporting burning down cities and defunding police, and were in favor of police getting beaten by gangs and mobs of people. They were fully in support of all these crazy, You can call them activists. You can call them whatever you want, but trying to form their own little. Remember CHOP? Remember that I believe up in Seattle, they were fully in support of all these crazy people just trying to form their own little nations within a nation. How they were mysteriously dropping off pallets of bricks and water and other supplies for these rioters to use. And nobody knew where they came from. They just showed up. Did we all forget about that? Who was funding that? Who was supporting that? I guarantee it wasn't Trump supporters. I guarantee it wasn't the Republican Party. Did we all forget about that? See, the problem is most Americans have short memories because, as I've said before, we can't look past the fact that you got to wake up, go to work, pay bills, and the only thing you have time for in your life is probably picking up your Starbucks on the way to work or coming home. Whatever the case is, we're here because we, the American people, put ourselves here. We didn't question. We weren't smart enough to basically hold the people that we elected accountable. We let them get away with this. And whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, to me, doesn't matter. What matters is that you hold American values true to your heart and first when it comes to this nation. And our laws matter and our policies matter. And thus far, the Democratic Party knows they're losing this presidential election. They know it's getting away from them. And they put themselves here by pushing race and hate. You can't turn on any news channel, you can't listen to any podcast, you can't listen to any media without hearing the Democratic Party directly attacking Trump just for existing and breathing, and attacking anybody who votes for Trump for just literally trying to support change and looking to move the country forward in a better direction. Listen, Democratic Party, blame yourself. And if you're one of those forever blue people, I feel for you. You may not agree with all the conservative values that are on the Republican side, but at the same time, can you really look at yourself in the mirror and say you support what's been going on lately? I mean, are you really behind a campaign that doesn't even have any real policies? I mean, let's address this. This has been Kamala Harris's campaign. The campaign of love who you want to love. The campaign of joy. The campaign of a woman's right to choose. That's it. Oh, hold on. And of course, the opportunity economy. There hasn't been any serious discussion of any real policies. And in fact, there hasn't been any real serious discussion of our foreign relations policies under Kamala Harris, what she will do, how she's going to get a handle on all the various wars going on, and the fact that we have this giant powder keg that is just ready to blow into possibly World War III. She doesn't address any of these things. She doesn't even have a real solution to how we're going to control the border, which they were fully in support of opening, but now suddenly, because they know it's an issue for the American people, that they kind of want to fix. And as far as a woman's right to choose goes, I'm personally not against that. I think a woman does have a right to choose. But I'm going to address this issue because let's just call it what it is. It's not the campaign of a woman's right to choose. It's the campaign of the right to an abortion. And I don't want to keep talking about this because this is of all the issues, to be honest, there's arguments on both sides. There really is. This isn't necessarily a right or wrong. But Tim Pool, I'm going to give Tim Pool credit. He made a great argument one time when he had a guest on his show. And he brought this up. And he literally asked the person, okay, a woman's right to choose. Great. Abortions forever, whatever. Now, if you're in support of abortion and you don't believe that a fetus is considered a living thing, a human being, even in most cases, in some states, up to 9 months, because they haven't been birthed yet, if it's not considered a child or a human being, then why is it that, let's say you get in a car accident and you're the driver and you yourself, the people you hit, you killed the mother to be and the child to be. Now, according to most liberals and Democrats, that's not a living child yet. under every law in every state, you would be charged for 2 counts of murder or manslaughter. And let's say the mother-to-be survives, but the child is lost. Even though the child is not considered a child yet and is not a human being according to most Democrats and liberals, you're still going to be charged with a count of murder or manslaughter. Now, if that is not a child, if that's not yet considered a child or human life, then why would you be charged with murder? Or why would you be charged with manslaughter? You see, you can't explain that away, can you? You see, it's amazing to me how most liberals and Democrats can pick and choose the law or the morality of the situation to fit their message. So it's murder or manslaughter if the unborn child is killed, but it's not murder or manslaughter if it's aborted. Under the laws and rules of abortion, it's not yet considered a human being or even a living thing. But if a pregnant mother loses a child because you killed the child because you ran your car into her, then you're charged with murder or manslaughter. It doesn't make sense to me. And I don't want to hang on to this topic for too long, but it's just another example of hypocrisy and another example of conflicting messages that have been used to divide the country. Now, getting back to Joe Biden and his direct statement against any Trump supporter being nothing but floating garbage, fine. You can say that. And supposedly it's okay. But guess what? The Democratic Party knows it's not okay because their liberal media is now trying to walk this back. They're trying to walk it back now. Here's a clip from MSNBC. And of course, we got Scarborough and Lemire here trying to really walk this back and say, whoa, wait a minute. He didn't really say that. That's not what he meant. Is it not what he meant? What do you mean it's not what he meant? Let's listen to what they have to say.
And what he said was, and I'll just read a little bit here from the transcript. He just says that, I know Puerto Ricans from my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization of Latinos is unconscionable and un-American. Now, some on the right have seized that comment to mean his supporters, meaning Donald Trump's supporters, meaning all Trump supporters, half the country.
But that is what he said. What do you mean they're trying to take it to mean? That is what he said. It's exactly what Joe Biden said. He is addressing what happened at the Trump rally. He is literally addressing supporters of Trump. But let's go ahead and hear this guy continue to try to explain this away.
That's the controversy last night. The president took to Twitter soon after the Zoom, tried to clean it up, clarifying that he was not talking about all of the Americans, but it is certainly half the American public. But it is certainly a controversy that the White House and the Harris campaign dealing with today. And as the right tries to make it, we're showing the tweet here from the president. His demonization of Latinos is unconscionable, the president writes. That's all I meant to say.
Okay, so again, they're trying to walk us back because they know that it was wrong. They know that it was wrong to call more than half of America floating garbage. And he's not just addressing white people, by the way, because the leftist-controlled media has gone out of their way repeatedly to call Donald Trump a fascist, nothing more than a leader of Nazi supporters. And how can you have a fascist regime full of Nazi supporters if every race supports Trump? We have Asians, we have Black people, we have people from India, we have Mexicans, we have Portuguese people. I mean, you name it. Every race in America supports Trump. And the only people against having all races coming together to support a candidate are the Democratic Party. And they'll be damned if they let you come together to show your support for change in America. And this is why it's so important to make sure that you go out and vote. If you really want to make this change, you have to vote, whether it's early voting, whether it's voting the day of. But listen, we're literally days away. We're days away. You don't have any more time to sit on the fence. You really don't. If you truly want to change the direction and course that America has been on, then you need to get out and vote. Stop sitting on the damn fence, make your decision, and cast your vote. Period. Now, with that being said, the left is going to go out of their way to try to tell you that no matter what, if you vote for Trump, you're a fascist, you're a Nazi, and you're on the wrong side of history. Now, it just seems that the only people who are really opposed to this change for the better, are liberal media personalities and, certain supporters of the Democratic Party. Now, not everybody in the Democrat Party believes in everything their own party is doing, by the way. It's evident by Tulsi Gabbard coming over to support Trump, by RFK Jr. coming over to support Trump, because even they can see that if anyone's been on the wrong side of history, and especially in where they're taking the country, it has been the Democratic Party over the last 12 to 16 years or even more. And they can't even put up with it. Hell, Elon Musk was a Democrat, and even he switched sides because it just doesn't make sense anymore. But here's the mighty, powerful, and super intelligent Bill Maher trying to say otherwise. I want to play this clip. Now, I don't play clips from a lot of other podcasters or personalities, but Bill Maher is an interesting one to me because he is an intelligent person. And there's times where he makes sense. And listen, during this entire election season between Kamala, or actually originally between Joe and Donald Trump, and now between Kamala and Trump, he has flip-flopped continuously. There's times where he's like, look, I can't vouch for or get behind what the Democratic Party's doing, and he calls them on their shit. And he's always called the Republicans on their shit, and he has a right to do so. And listen, the Republicans are not perfect. Absolutely not perfect. Bill Maher's always one of those guys where I'm like, yeah, we know you're a Democrat, and you lean left, but he makes some great points. But lately, he's going back to just being full on, 100%. I'm going to push my party over the line, and no matter what it takes or what I say. So I'm going to play a clip that just came out in which he refers to voting for Donald Trump as being on the wrong side of history.
In the news this week, we thought when the Ukraine war started, Putin would be isolated. He's not isolated. He had the BRICS nation. That's Brazil, Russia, Iran, India, China, South Africa, and now 4 or 5 other countries. It's about half the world's population, about 35% of the GDP. He's got North Korean troops in his war in Ukraine now. He's very chummy with China. China and Russia always hated each other, not anymore, and Iran. These are the dictator countries. There's a very World War II feeling here when the dictator countries are getting together. In World War II, what did Hitler and the Japanese have in common? Nothing, except they saw the world one way, fascism. They all have to do it in their different way. Iran is a fascist country in their own way. So is China, so is Russia, Saudi Arabia, you could say also. Somehow, the world seems to be dividing between the good guy countries, the democratic countries, and these autocracies. And if your guy gets in, we're going to be on the wrong side of this one.
Okay. If my guy gets in.
Okay, Bill. So are you directly calling or at least insinuating that Trump is a fascist, that he is a dictator, that he is Hitler, that he is not democratic? Are you saying that the only people who are Democratic are people who are part of the actual Democrat Party? All you, as my brother would say, blue donkey loving motherfuckers out there? Sorry, no offense to anybody who's part of the Democratic Party. I'm just making a statement and trying to throw a little humor in there. But you are motherfuckers. Anyway, moving on. So Bill Maher, in all of his wisdom, who speaks from a position of always being on top and above others and looking down on others as if he has all this vast knowledge that he taps into. And again, he is actually an extremely intelligent person. But he's stating we're going to be on the wrong side of history because he's insinuating that if Trump gets in office, he's going to go ahead and do what? Join BRICS? And BRICS is a very important topic of discussion that I am actually going to go over in my next episode. I'm not going to do it now, but if you haven't, look up BRICS, BRICS, and look at what's going on there. There's over 30 nations that are coming together to literally create their own currency, their own banking system, and be self-reliant and self-sufficient outside of the influence of any Western nations. So it's very important that we address that. But according to Bill Maher, that if Trump is elected, we're going to join BRICS and support Putin and China. I mean, seriously? Bill, what the fuck are you thinking? Do you really believe this? It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense, the shit that some of these people are saying. It really doesn't. Under President Trump, we had some of the toughest foreign relations policies out there ever. And under Donald Trump, he didn't start, or we didn't start and get involved in any new wars. We just didn't. And so how does Bill Maher believe that we're going to be on the wrong side of history for putting Trump in office? How is that? All right, so let's hear more of that Bill Maher clip. His guest is going to go ahead and respond to Bill Maher's statement. And then listen to what Bill Maher says at the very end.
Okay. If my guy gets in, I think we'll go back to the time that we had when he was president, which is the only time we didn't start a war and get involved in a war. Did Putin?
That's not true.
Did Putin?
Jimmy Carter never fired a shot.
Putin did not invade Ukraine until Biden took over. We had the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, which projected weakness through the world. People understood that we were enfeebled, and that is what was provocative. Weakness is provocative. I feel like Trump destabilized these people. They didn't know what to expect of him. Next thing you know, he's bombing Soleimani. Trump did strategic strikes that had people on their heels. They didn't know what he might do to them. And we did not have Putin invade
It's what he might do to
Ukraine.
us that I'm a little more worried about.
Really, Bill? Really? You're worried about what Trump's going to do to us or you and your party in particular? And when his guest here is basically just replying with actual facts. I mean, he did have to correct her and say, oh, Jimmy Carter never fired a shot. You know what, Bill? Fair enough. But you know exactly what she was getting at. There wasn't any new wars under Trump, period. And you know that's what she meant. But regardless, you're correct. Fine. We'll give you that. But your only rebuttal after all that truth is, I'm only afraid what he might do to us, because you know she's right. And what are you afraid of? You know what you should be afraid of, Bill? You should be afraid of Kamala. I'm gonna play a clip of Kamala Harris. And you can hear Kamala Harris speaking about power and how she would use power and the way she would use it against people. I want you to hear this clip of her talking about how she can affect your life with just a stroke of a pen.
What I have as a prosecutor is that with a swipe of my pen, I can charge someone with a misdemeanor, the lowest level offense possible. And by virtue of that swipe of my pen, you will have to go to a courthouse and stand in line. You will have to come out of pocket and hire an attorney. You may get arrested for a few hours. You will be embarrassed in your community. You will miss time from coming onto the Google campus. All because with the swipe of my pen, I've charged you with a crime, which I may choose to dismiss 2 weeks later. It's an incredible amount of power.
Hold on. That was Kamala Harris, everybody. That was an incredible statement she just made in regard to how much power she has within using a stroke of a pen. The power that she is happy to use and admitting, I might just put you in jail just to do so, to delay you, because, who knows, 2 weeks later, I just might dismiss it. It doesn't even matter. This is her. This is her before she ran for president, admitting to the fact that she is drunk with power and that she is going to do everything she can to exercise the powers at her disposal, which involve and include throwing you in jail if she wants to. So Bill Maher's not afraid of this person, not afraid of Kamala exercising her powers, but is afraid of what Trump might do. Someone who's actually running in support of America and the American way. but not afraid of what Kamala will do. And I'm not going to play the clip, but I'm sure many of us all recall the clip that was floating around just recently of Hillary Clinton literally publicly saying, hey, if we don't control the media, then we have nothing. Literally talking about censorship and how the Democratic Party controls the media and how important it is to control the narrative. So Bill Maher's not afraid of that either. You're not afraid of not having your free speech rights anymore. Your Second Amendment being amended to almost be nothing of use in terms of protecting yourself. And then you have a presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, who's so, willing to use the powers at her disposal to keep the citizens in line, citizens of the United States in line, or anybody within the United States in line. Really? Okay, Bill. You're not afraid of that. Got it. I don't know what to say. And if that's not enough, let's go ahead and move on to this other clip here, where the Democratic Party, outside of admitting to wanting to limit your free speech and to exercise powers that can put you in jail just because they can, are going even further to try to make sure that this election ends up in their favor. Here's a clip from Fox News, and I'm going to play this. I'm going to play this clip because it goes over some very interesting stuff, and this is Jesse Waters here.
Today in Georgia, a judge ruled that election officials have to certify results, even if voter fraud is suspected.
Did you hear that? Have to certify results, even if voter fraud is suspected. So you're suspecting there's voter fraud involved, and you may even know there is, but you're going to certify it anyway. A judge ruled this in Georgia. All right. That's just fine, right? That's okay. Moving on.
And around the state, Democrats are suing to prevent drop box surveillance, hand counting ballots, and voter ID protections. Why are Democrats trying to make elections less secure? Especially while many states across the country are finding thousands of people who aren't citizens on the voter rolls. Like in Virginia, where Governor Youngkin removed more than 6,000 non-citizens from the rolls. The Biden-Harris administration didn't like that. The Justice Department is now suing Virginia for cleaning up the voter rolls, something Virginia governors have been doing for years.
Why is it that anyone could argue that a process that removes non-citizens off of our voter rolls is anything else other than common sense and constitutional? This is a law that's been on our books since 2006. Yep. It was a law that was signed by then Democrat Governor Tim Kaine. This is why I find this to be a very, very unreal moment that is stunning, that they filed this suit 25 days before a presidential election, when in fact this has been going on in accordance with our Constitution, the federal Constitution, and state law since 2006.
It's simple. We just want free and fair elections.
Now, that does make you wonder, though, right? Like, why would the Democratic Party sue to keep non-citizens on voter rolls when they can't vote anyway? By law, legally, constitutionally, they're not allowed to vote. If you're not a citizen, you can't vote. Does it make any sense whatsoever? Does it? No, it doesn't. The only reason that you don't want enhanced security around voter boxes or places where you can go to vote in person, or the fact that you don't want to remove non-citizens from voter rolls, and even extending time to count the votes. I mean, who needs an extra 2 weeks to count the votes? Most other countries can count all the votes within the same day or by the next day, period. There's some states that are able to do that, yet for some reason, we need extra time, another 2 weeks even. The only reason you'd want to do any of that is if you're trying to cheat. I'm just going to say what it is. I'm going to call it out. And I don't want to say this because I don't want America to be that country, literally turning into a third world nation or a banana republic when it comes to our politics and government. It's very painfully evident that the Democrat Party is trying to do anything it can to maintain its power. And listen, we've already seen in the news where there are now remote ballot boxes being burned on fire. And guess what? They're full of ballots. So what happens to those ballots? How do we count those? How do we know who they were supporting? Who's going out and doing that? And why? Unless you were trying to interfere with the elections or cheat. I guess that would be why. That would be the only reason. And if any of this doesn't work, don't forget that Jamie Raskin claimed that he will make sure that Congress does whatever they can to stop Donald Trump and will make sure that they don't certify the election, period. Here's a clip of Jamie Raskin.
What can be put into the Constitution can slip away from you very quickly. And the greatest example going on right now before our very eyes is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which they're just disappearing with a magic wand, as if it doesn't exist, even though it could not be clearer what it's stating. And so, they want to kick it to Congress. So it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025 to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. And then we need bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions, all because the 9 justices, not all of them, but these justices who have not many cases to look at every year, not that much work to do, a huge staff, great protection, simply do not want to do their job and interpret what the great 14th Amendment means.
All right, Jamie. So you're saying that you are willing to create Civil War conditions, that you're going to wait till January 6th of 2025 to try to make this decision, to try to disqualify Trump, when you could have done this at any time. You know why you haven't? Because January 6th was bullshit. You can't pin it on Trump. He's already been through it. You haven't convicted him, and you can't convict him, and you know it. But you're saying that you're going to go out of your way. You're going to go out of your way on January 6th of 2025 to go ahead and deny Trump if he wins the election. And you're willing to create Civil War-like conditions to do so. See, these are the lengths that the Democratic Party will go to make sure that they remain in power. So, with all that being said, this is the last-ditch effort by the Democratic Party to make you believe that you're on the wrong side of history, that Trump is a fascist Nazi, and that you're a racist individual for supporting Trump. Yet I've played many clips of evidence and have brought to your attention the fact that it's the Democratic Party who has been spreading division and speaking of using their powers against you, and literally afraid of what would happen if there is a regime change, if Trump gets back into office. And you know what's going to happen? Nothing, because he's going to be focused on making America great again. And let me just say this. I'm not a Trumpster, as some people would say. I don't think he's a perfect candidate whatsoever. But given my options, I am definitely not voting for Kamala Harris, because I think there's too much at stake. And I think that America matters and that the American people matter. I also think that with everything going on in the world right now and the giant powder keg that we're all sitting on, that is literally a breath away from turning into World War III or possibly becoming World War III, that we don't need a Kamala Harris, someone who's drunk on power, someone who is adamant on maintaining power for the sake of power, to be in the position of president at this time in the world, or any time for that matter. We need a president who is strong and knows how to deal with strong individuals and show the world that we can basically clean house and get our shit together once again and continue to be the democratic beacon of the world. And that's what we need to get back to. And we also need to get back to caring for our own people, period. So stop sitting on the fence. Get off your ass, go vote, and make the change that is necessary. Okay, once again, I'd like to thank everybody for listening and supporting the show. And if I have one thing to ask anybody, is to please share the show with others and introduce World Ablaze to your friends, family, coworkers, and spread the word. And again, like, follow, share the show, and thank you so much for your support. Have a great day.
Taste your content, hold your breath and feel the tension. Devils hide behind redemption. Honesty is a one-way gate to hell.